I started being groomed at 2 years old, and this continued for many years by different men. I quickly learned that if I did not comply with my abuser's sexual desires, there would be consequences. I was told that this was what a man wanted, and that I was special because I was so pretty. I thought that all men were like them, and if I didn't give it up to a man when he wanted sex, he'd just rape me. I can tell you that this instilled something so deep that it carried with me into adulthood. I lacked a father figure and attention, and once I knew how to sexually satisfy a man, I used this in order to feel wanted. So it was not surprising that all of the men I was involved with throughout my life were abusive, mentally, physically, and sexually. When my parents divorced, I had a huge daddy hole in my heart and went on a mission to fill that. I had mistaken sex for love. I was recruited into prostitution by a woman who was a pimp, and she promised me a better life. I could escape my abusive relationship, save money, and save my kids, and I believed her. I didn't work and didn't have any good supports around me, so it made sense. I mean, how hard could it be? Pretty Woman made it look so glamorous. I spent 15 years in this so-called sex trade, selling my body out of hotels, strip clubs, my car, apartments, not because I wanted to, but because of lack of choice. I had been in abusive relationships with men since I was 12. So let's be honest here and stop sugarcoating this so-called profession and tell it like it is. I had clients confess to me that the things they did to me, they would never ask their wives to do because they respected her or because she was their baby mama. Some of the things I experienced as a prostitute included being urinated on and asked to do the same. I had clients who had all kinds of fetishes, foot fetishes, bondage, being spanked, men wearing women's clothing, and anal fetishes, domination while I was submissive and vice versa, and role play. Many times they would want to role play and ask me to be a little girl or play out rape fantasies. I will never forget an older man I serviced who had told me he had just come from watching his 13-year-old granddaughter sunbathe, and it got him horny. Men would grab and pull my breasts until I cried. When I would tell them they were hurting me, I was the one who didn't know what I was talking about. I'd been put in every sexual position possible and pounded until I thought I was ripped in two. I've had my hair pulled, been spit on, had my jaw dislocated, been anally raped, and choked. Glamorous, huh? I've experienced all of this because this is what they paid for. Then there were the clients who would come in on a Friday or a Saturday night with their buddies, and they would all want a piece of me. So either I saw one right after the other, or they would all come in a room and at the same time take turns in front of each other. The drunken stone clients would want me to party with them, and if they couldn't get off because they were too wasted, it was somehow my fault, and then the violence would begin. Have you ever tried to reason with someone under the influence? In my experience, there's nothing worse than a man who's intoxicated and becomes angry. There were men who came in and claimed to be judges and lawyers, police. I even had a teacher who taught me in grade school come see me. Some of my friends' dads were also clients. I had been robbed at gunpoint, been called a slut, threatened with death, forced to give blowjobs until I puked. I had been bit until I bled. This is not a moral or religious issue. This is an issue of exploitation and violence against women. Did you know that psychopaths will first use prostitutes to experiment on before they move into society? Because prostitutes will not report them and are viewed as disposable people. I want more for our daughters. I want women to be respected and valued. I want our men to know that this is not right, to use and abuse someone for their own gratification. Prostitution will never, and I repeat, never be looked at as a legit job. Even if it was legalized in every aspect. Imagine, your son comes home to tell you about the new girl he is dating, and then you learn her profession is a prostitute. Do you think prostitution will ever be looked at as a stand-up job? Or your daughter comes to you and says, I have decided I want to become a prostitute, and you as a parent say, wow, honey, I am so proud of you. Seriously. I am so fed up with this pro-legalization side who claims to like what they do and that it's empowering, or that they get to make their own hours, or whatever their arguments are. First of all, I would ask them if they've ever been exposed to any kind of abuse before entering the sex trade. If so, did you get any kind of therapy for what happened? Did you come from a loving two-parent home where personal values were instilled and where you were encouraged to become someone? Did you end up in the wrong crowd? At one point, I would have been for legalization because that was my normal. It was what I needed to do to survive. If I would have admitted out loud that this was wrong and that I deserved better, the shame and the guilt would have eaten me alive, therefore not allowing me to do what I needed to do. Now let's talk about the empowering part. I'd never made large amounts of money that fast or in such a short time. And yes, I hated men abusing me, but the more money I made, the more I could justify why I was doing this. When men chose me in the massage parlor, it made me feel wanted and beautiful in the moment. But then you soon have realization. They only pick you because you're fresh meat, and they want to see how much they can get away with, or if you will do things cheaper than the other girls. I soon realized it wasn't that I was more beautiful, I was just a hole for them to use. In time, I felt dirty and my mind started to change. I no longer trusted any men because more than half are married, and I really believed all men were pigs and abusive. I started to hate myself, but I loved and needed the money, and I felt I needed to keep doing this. Around me, all the girls were getting high and the clients offered me drugs. So even if you weren't doing drugs before entering, you begin to. I then started doing stronger drugs because I wanted to feel happy like the others instead of miserable. I wanted to stop thinking, or God forbid, I had a horrible client and had to put on a smile for the next. So it just makes sense to numb yourself. Drugs also gave me this boldness and openness to be able to do more because I was so stoned I just didn't care. I have heard so many girls say I'm only going to do this to pay for school, which they never finish. Or if they do, they still stay in the industry. Or they say it's only going to be for a while to make extra money, but it's never enough. I lost who I once was and became replaced by this new me who was provocative. I became desensitized to everything sexual, and all the things that men wanted from me became my normal, when in fact it was degrading. I became angry and tough. I lost any innocence I had, which wasn't much to begin with. Sex became my job, and I couldn't separate real life from the fantasy life I was portraying at this so-called job. How do you separate your personal relationship? How do you go to work and become this toy and then go home and make love to your man? You don't. Any sex I had with boyfriends in the business was me acting the same way I did with clients, and soon I lost me. There is so much damage done, not just to my physical body, but to my spirit and my soul. Things will be lost forever, and such deep wounds have become ingrained in who I am. It takes a lot of work and support to leave and get better in all those areas. I didn't even realize how much damage was done until after I left and became sober. Then I was left to deal with the shame and the mistrust, and to try to find that girl I once was. Sadly, she's gone. So I've had to learn all over again how to be me. Unfortunately, my story isn't unique. The truth is, I have heard this story hundreds of times. This is happening not just in third world countries, but in our own backyards. It is time to stand up for our women and our children, protect them and teach them before they fall prey to this dark world. This, my friends, is the dirty truth. My name's Katarina MacLeod, and I wanted to do this video, The Dirty Truth, so that people would understand the realities of what happens to a woman in this so-called sex trade. I spent 15 years in there, and I can tell you that I went through hell. You may find this video a little bit unsettling, and actually I hope you do, because then it means that we did our job. Thanks for watching.